Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode in which we'll be talking about Virgo, because here we are coming up upon a Virgo full moon on Tuesday, March 3rd. So we'll begin with our flower essence affirmation, and the flower essence assigned to the sign of Virgo out of the 12 healers, the first 12 flowers that Dr. Bach found, is Centauri, oftentimes Centauri. So we'll begin with the affirmation, and then we're going to weave in the meaning of Centauri in with our discussion on Virgo and the anthroposophical virtue and ennobled virtue. We'll get into that. So for Centauri it says, I acknowledge my own needs and boundaries. I say yes to myself. I can give to others when my own strength is secure. I serve others by being true to myself. Now, as a Virgo rising, I've often really related to the sign of Virgo, especially from the point of view of having sort of an honest and clear judgment and analysis of what is around me and like what needs to happen, what needs to change. And similarly, a process within me of wanting to have the right sort of habits in place and purify certain aspects of myself that need it. And Virgo does really have a high expectation and ideal of perfection. It's interesting. It's coming out of, Leo, where you have this like ideal of the sun and all that could be and all that is true. And then, on the other side of Virgo, you go into Libra, which brings a balance, and really what is fair. And Virgo, I feel like, can often sort of have this organizing quality over all the energy output of Leo. It's like the Virgo can kind of organize it and analyze it. But this has a fine line of turning into, judgment and criticism and getting sort of stuck in a loop of that towards yourself and towards the external, which go hand in hand. And as you probably already know, I'm walking with you in learning about the virtues and how they relate to the zodiac. So the virtue that Steiner gave for Virgo is courtesy. And courtesy becomes steadfastness of feeling. And at first, this took me a moment to really, find the connection. More than a moment. It took me a bit to find the connection there. But I started to see actually there's this connection to, Virgo, which might have themselves like really together and have this almost like prim and proper quality about them. And this idea of like courtesy and, politeness and manners. But then interestingly enough, the virtue of courtesy, which is beyond sort of the conditioned falsehoods that sometimes being like, polite and mannered can be put upon you, or it's, something that you act out of that isn't free. The virtue of courtesy could actually heal some of the potential like negative criticism spirals that I think that, can come with Virgo. And that is courtesy is treating everyone with respect and kindness, no matter who it is and what the circumstances are. No matter the situation you're in with that person, the personal situation, it's still treating them with respect and kindness. I see that as being the courtesy and thinking of others and thinking of their point of view. So in courtesy becoming steadfastness in feeling, it's this gesture of not being pulled out of the moment by all of the different ways you wish it could be, or all of the criticisms or frustrations or aggravations that you have about this other person, but rather like being able to maintain in a true and genuine way what you outwardly are displaying through courtesy, maintaining that internally too, where yes, you may intellectually acknowledge that things could work better and be more perfect and more purified, but instead you're with what's in front of you with feeling, which of course has, the potential to have compassion and love, but not in an overly, like, I don't know if this would exactly be love, but something that we might think of as love is like an over acceptance, or just saying like kind of, really wrapping up the person and saying, oh, that's all right. It's like a steadfastness of feeling. So you're also not going there in that direction, but you're maintaining the central core of really peace that you need to be at with both how the other person is and where you are, even with your ideals in mind and ever striving for that. And I think this is related to Centauri, to get back to the flower essence, because Centauri is all about, maintaining boundaries. Centauri is often for people who sort of get used and kind of like overly exert and give of themselves in ways that aren't actually healthy. But when you look at practicing this virtue, you can feel in it actually this relationship of, here is me, here is you, and then here are you, and here is this this like boundaried, fair, present, steadfast respect and commitment to the moment with the other, in a way where you're not being pulled out of yourself and you're not being pulled in different directions, but rather maintaining that as a steady force. So this virtue is not only being courteous to other people, but also that is what you expect of towards yourself too. And perhaps you don't actually entertain, this would be the boundary, you don't entertain anything that isn't respectful of you. You just, you maintain your core, and you actually find some way to not let that in or not allow that in your space. And in doing so, depending on the situation and depending on the person, that could be helpful for them to overcome some of those imperfections, like you're able to clearly see with the sort of perspective of Virgo. As you're likewise hopefully also overcoming some of those imperfections within yourself by not being taken for a ride with it. And it's interesting, I actually had a conversation with someone recently about how, yes, it's like your responsibility is to yourself, to moving to that higher place in yourself rather than your personal place, the personal place where you would react. It's like moving up to that. But from that perspective, you can actually see the higher self and potential, which is on a certain plane true, the higher potential of the other, and you can actually speak to them from there. And in doing so, it gives them the opportunity in their own freedom to rise up to that. And it elevates the whole situation. Rather than you can get caught into a loop of, feeling criticism towards everything within you and everything around you, and never actually feel at peace. So Virgo can end up, yes, in the spiral of worrying and overanalyzing things around them because of that sound judgment of what's actually happening around us, and kind of that editing mind, like how can I sometimes think of it this way too, of Leo as having this like burst of creative spirit, and then you get the Virgo to come in and edit it, but then you have the Libra to find the harmony and the balance between actually these two polarities, perhaps just from like an artist's perspective. And so how can you maintain the beauty from the inspiration that came through the Leo, maintain that energy and that life, not overly like taking it apart and making it perfect, and creating a harmony, and actually kind of knowing when this process comes to completion. When is it whole? When is it harmonious? Whole does not mean perfect, right? So that constant criticism of ourselves and others can put us in the state, yes, of agitation and annoyance. And this virtue practice leads us to peace. And I keep using the word peace because actually that piece, that part of it came to me in doing the oracle card pull, which is from the Mother Mary Oracle. by Alana Fairchild, and we've been pulling an oracle card for each sign in each episode. And we have here Our Lady who gives peace. Our Lady who gives peace. So I'll read a little bit of this to you. And perhaps as I read it, if you hold in your mind that idea of of taking yourself to the higher in yourself, out of the personal and into the higher, and how that can help raise the situation or raise the other too. All right, so it says, handing over a concern to the Divine Mother can sound easier in theory than how it is experienced in practice. We might think that we are handing something over, but if we are worrying about it again in 5 minutes or 5 days, then we have taken it back again. Handing something over means a complete and utter letting go, a surrender of attachment to the outcome, and a willingness to trust that what is meant to be will be. It is based on an acceptance that the divine wants the best for us, and that whatever happens will best serve us, irrespective of whether we are initially thrilled or initially disappointed in the result. We can ask for what we want with great passionate enthusiasm, and then ask that what we are given serves us best. When we pray in this way, we allow the divine to present us with opportunities and solutions that will supersede any concepts we could have come up with on our own. We allow the divine brilliance to be. And just to pause there for a second, we'll talk more about sort of like the intellectual and balancing the intellectual with this. But I love how this is also presenting this different paradigm of looking at things, of letting go of, yes, this outcome, or what I'm thinking of as like perfectionism, letting go of that being the conclusion, but rather in surrendering also to, like, what spirit is able to bring in if we're able to maintain our centered self, and how the virtue of Virgo, the higher form of Virgo, can allow us to be there. How much more that could bring us to a harmonious whole, which is different from the perfection. All right, so continuing with the card, it says, Mother Mary can bring us a gift of inner peace when we approach our spiritual life in this way. That doesn't mean we don't care, that we check out of our relationships in our world. It means that we are blessed with an ability to accept what is and to relax in trust of what is yet to be. We put in our effort and our prayer, and then we let it go. The gift of peace comes as a sign that we have indeed let go. We are just allowing life to be. In times of great spiritual growth, there is near constant uncertainty. A seemingly endless process of transition can be experienced if you are on an accelerated spiritual path this lifetime, which is highly likely to be the case that you are if you're attracted to this oracle deck, which resonates at such a vibration. Oh wow, she's complimenting her own deck. Hey, I think it's valid. It's a great deck. It is a precious resource to be able to find a place of peace that doesn't stop us from growing, but empowers us to relax and trust with contentment in our process, even when our process is one of great tests or challenges. Mother Mary comes to you through this oracle with a message to be heeded. You are either in a situation now where you feel tested and challenged, or uncertain as to whether or not you should be worried, or you are going to have an issue that comes to a head soon, which may feel challenging to you. And who of us, I mean, it's in the collective, it's in the whole world, we feel it. This full moon is actually an eclipse. I keep popping out of the description of the oracle, but I think it's important to say, like, yeah, no, we're all there, and we're all dealing with it in the personal, in community, in the social, and also in this global picture. Do not fear. She says this, I am with you. I am your cloak of protection, and the eye in your heart that shows you the way through. Trust me and allow me to bring you peace. From that peaceful place within, you will be able to make choices that help you greatly. You will be inspired by the inner guidance from the Divine Mother, which flows more easily into your peaceful mind. Do not worry if you do not see a way forward at this moment. That is a question of timing only. At the right time, nudges are given and a way forward becomes visible. If you cannot see a solution right now, that does not mean that there is no solution. It simply means that the threads of the situation or issue are being unknotted. Have you ever tried to quickly unpick a knot? In a hurried fashion, the threads can become tighter. In a relaxed fashion, they can easily and instantly unravel. With the gift of peace, your life may seem to slow down, but the resolution of problems will quicken. Open to her gift of peace and experience this for yourself, beloved. So that's the end of that description. And I think it goes perfectly with the card actually that I pulled. Not pulled, but chose. The card for the other flower essence, which is Downy Avens. So this is one of the 12 heart remedies by FES, Flower Essence Services, or Society. I've seen it both. I think that they mean different parts of the organization. But anyway, FES, Downy Avens. It's part of the 12 heart remedies, which I assigned on my own to go along with the 12 healers that go along with the zodiac. And Downy Avens is actually a healing of an over dominance of the intellect, in which it overrides the heart and the will, actually, being on the other side of the will. But the intellect can solidify and can really deaden our processes and findings in which we can't really hear spirit, and we can't find that through the heart actually what's needed. The intellect is what would strive for perfectionism and picking everything apart and judging and criticizing, especially without that element of heart, which is there. With that element of heart, when it's there, can heal that, bring it back into balance, and make it actually useful, because there is a place actually for being able to look and see what needs to be changed and see what isn't working, but doing so with that courtesy and that respect for everything that's around us, for how it already is, and for the free will of others to come in their own timing. That's an important piece of the puzzle. So Downy Avens helps with an overly advanced head force and a lack of maturity in the heart, which I think, again, as a society in general, this is something that we are facing. This is actually a remedy that's recommended with FES through their kindergarten blend to give to children, because all children are kind of being like really bombarded with head forces and information, and really, our whole education system is focusing in on that to such a degree that the rest of the being of the child, the rest of the systems within them that are not the intellectual, are not the head, are being put out of whack and out of balance. So again, you can see that with Virgo, with this sort of overly analytical nature, and how coming into that steadfastness of feeling, that is the matured state, and how that can really help to heal this imbalance. So we will read the affirmation for Downy Avens at the very end to close it out. But I also wanted to give you our Virgo journal prompt, which, interestingly enough, I forget if I've mentioned this on another episode, but I actually wrote all of the journal prompts myself. I wrote them before looking really deeply into the virtues of each zodiac sign, and realizing that I'm going to be, trying to talk about these things and putting them together. Likewise, without looking at the flower essence that, connects to the zodiac. So it's really curious to me the way these things, it's like, I feel like that is my intention actually with the series, is to take these things that are related to something in the center, which is Virgo, and finding this integration between them. So we're taking the flower essences, and then we're taking the virtue, and then we're also taking a journal prompt and the sign itself. And then we're taking what a seemingly random card pull from the Mother Mary Oracle that is always also relevant. But it's like, it actually is not, if I were to use my intellect, hey, this is a really good example. If I were to use my intellect to say, okay, here's Virgo, what's the virtue of it, and what's the next step of that virtue, what's the even the further development of that virtue, I would choose something different. and which are the flower essences that go along with it, I would choose something different. And which oracle card out of this whole deck would go along with it, I would choose probably the most obviously related things, but then it wouldn't go into this depth. It's so interesting. It's in the relationships of these things actually that we can come to a new understanding and go deeper and go higher. And that's actually why I see value in card reading at all, is because, you've got yourself and your perspective and maybe whatever it is you're trying to work through, or if you have a question. And then you have this card, or multiple cards, a spread, however you do it, as something that, you wouldn't have necessarily chosen or thought about in relationship to it. And then you can find between these two, it opens you up to a third possibility. So this journal prompt really relates to that inner criticism, which I think actually is, it goes hand in hand, but I often would also think it's the origin, actually, of feeling critical of other people around us. And we're often most agitated by the things that remind us the most of ourselves, or something we don't like about ourselves. So this journal prompt is, when does negative self-talk typically creep in for you? We so often focus on what we need to change that we don't often take stock and celebrate how far we've come. In what ways have you grown and developed this past month and or year? What are some elements of your true self that you can really let shine? And the card pull is, what is a quality about me to celebrate and appreciate? So you can already hear in this question, which again, I wrote at a completely different time. You can already hear in, the prompt and the question with the cards, a way of moving from that analytical, intellectual place into more of the heart. And in doing so by looking at our own, what we negatively talk to ourselves about in our own minds. So starting there, starting within. So judgment and criticism is actually something very innate in my nature because of how I was raised, and because of sort of my, the gesture of my family, and the kind of like tendencies there, and the habits and things there, and what I was around. And also, again, being a Virgo rising, there's probably something there with it as well. So this is something I've been working on with myself, and it's funny because I actually keep catching myself in it. In that if I'm thinking about someone, even in the same subject matter, where I'm like, wow, this person is really, really critical of everything. It's like, can't actually appreciate things because she's like constantly seeing what's wrong. And in doing so, it's like, oh wait, I'm actually doing that too. But it's like on a different, I have actually like evolved this in a different way. So it's like, it's still there, but now it's there on a different level. So I'm kind of having to meet it anew at a different place within me. So maybe I've really worked on feeling sort of judgmental or critical about people who think differently, or people who like have made different choices, or like all of these kinds of things. People live their lives differently. It's like I feel like I've worked on that with myself. Really, really worked on that. Had to face a lot of things with that actually. So that's there, but now it's like, okay, I'm recognizing that unpurified quality in another person. So then in this, it's like, okay, I could think of that as negative self-talk, but I could also think of it as as like, oh, here's a way to look at how far I've come. It's like, oh, now I'm here. And now I see it too. Now I see it in myself. That's something to celebrate. So it's not just like taking it away, because there is a truth to it. There's a truth that I still have work to do, but there's a way to approach it like through the heart in a way that isn't just kind of like picking myself apart. So that's something that I've really come to with this. And my card pull for what is a quality about me to celebrate and appreciate is the Four of Swords. So I'm actually interpreting that as like that ability to self-reflect, which is something I'm still developing and have been in process of developing for a long time. Journaling has been a huge part of this. I do have to say, this is so, this is interesting, I think. Hopefully helpful to some people listening. But I used to be really into doing morning pages from the Artist's Way, which is basically where you write 3 pages of longhand stream of consciousness journaling as soon as you wake up. And you don't go back and reread this, so this isn't actually about like, that could easily spin you into sort of self-judgment, actually, is going back and rereading, because it is not the pretty parts of ourselves that when we're just like forced to like put it out on the paper, and we're not expecting that anyone's going to read it. We're not thinking we have to show up in a certain way, hopefully. But it actually brings these things to light, though. It's like in writing it down, it brings it more into light and into my consciousness, and I can actually tell, like, okay, I'm writing about the same things every single day, and they often are like self-criticism. For me, I was and am still, in a way, in loops about habits and how I might not like be perfect in a certain habit or practice that I want to be doing every day, or a certain way of being that I want to be. And then it's also complaining about other people and how they make me feel, and like, all of that stuff. So I feel like, yeah, that's what I'm personally taking from this Four of Swords, is this ability to sort of stop and self-reflect. And it's the swords, so it is, it's in the intellect, and it's analyzing, but it's not using the sword as a weapon. It's not using the sword to take anything down. It's in this very restful position, actually, just looking at the swords and considering them. And so, in a way, I actually think this is the perfect card for what we're talking about. Again, not the card that I would choose if I were to go through the deck and say, all right, which one makes the most sense from what I already know. I hope that something from this has been useful. Happy full moon if you're watching this or listening to it when it comes out. And, happy Virgo season if you're watching it another time. Or happy Virgo state of being if you're watching this just to understand Virgo or understanding it as a sign within yourself. I just really appreciate you being here. And we will close with the Downy Avens affirmation. My head is learning to listen. I slow my pace to find my heart's place. Intelligence ripens into warm wisdom within me. I cherish the world with my knowing heart. I just love reading that upon looking at the Four of Swords cards and actually like thinking how those two cards go together. Yeah, that was wonderful. I will see you all next time.